Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a two-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
It's always good to get the day started with a little tune like that from Joe and Woody and the boys of the Road Crew, roadcrew66.com. If you need some music to inspire your road trip or a theme song for your road trip. Hey, it is 43 wonderful degrees here at the studios of Jim Hinckley's America, within spitting distance of legendary Route 66 here in Kingman, Arizona. We're going to have some fun this morning. We're going to take a little bit of a detour off Route 66 and step back in time and visit with author Gloria Nash. Talk about the New York World's Fair, urban exploration, and, well, we'll just beat our gums and see where this takes us. Hey, good morning, Gloria. How are you doing
Good.
today?
I'm doing great. I hope you can hear me.
I sure can. How are things in New
Wonderful.
York?
It is 18 degrees, and who knows? We had our first snow yesterday in 3 years, and it was welcome. I enjoyed it. It was about an eighth of an inch and was gone in about a nanosecond. It was
Yeah,
fun.
isn't that odd? No snow for a couple years in New York. That's just
Yeah,
strange.
yeah.
I've never been to New York City. I have to admit that. I've covered most
Oh,
of the country, but I've missed out on New York City.
well, come on by if you're ever around and take a nice road trip. I have been out in your area. In Kingman, I have a lot of relatives there, and I've lived in Las Vegas, San Diego, and I've gotten around, had a lot of fun.
Yeah, God bless. Most people, Kingman's one of those places everybody knows about because they broke down here at least once, and we're not in the middle of nowhere. But if we squint hard, we
No,
can see
you're
it
not.
from here. Hey,
Not.
I was, I've been following your exploits for a while, your posts,
Hmm.
and I'm a big fan of urban exploration. Even though
Hmm.
I have tremendous trouble in any town with more than three stoplights, I am a sucker for urban exploration, and that's number one. And number two, the World's Fair, 39 and 64. Those have long been a source of fascination for me.
Yeah,
So your
nice.
your book intrigues me.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. And you didn't go to 64 since you've never been to New York, but I went to that fair. I'm too young to have gone to the other fair. Most of us here are, but uh, I went many many times. We lived close by, and the funny thing is that then I moved out of New York, and then when I traveled, I loved traveling out west and the Midwest and everywhere but New York. So I never did anything local, and the only time I started traveling local was when the pandemic came. And so one day I stopped into the park, uh, which is near where my mom lives, and one thing led to another, and I ended up going to the park almost every day for 2 years, photographing and just falling in love with learning about the World's Fair that was in that park when I went. Because of course my memories are a little hazy. I was 10 and 11 when I was at the fair, so not the best memories, but we went very often. I went with friends and school and whatnot. And then we've all seen. We don't have to go to the 39 fair to see what that was about. One of the most beautiful fairs I think that has been, and so that absolutely was captivating. So it was a lot of fun to do this research.
Your book had an intriguing title, "Looking Back at the Future: Photographing Vintage Leftovers." I is there much left from the 1939 World's Fair?
Well, what I discovered, when you start to read and hear stories about what's left and what's not, there's people say there's nothing left, but I actually found a lot, and I found so much, Jim, that I'm working on the second edition of the book.
Oh,
So there
excellent,
is an
excellent.
absolute, there's tons of things. You have to know where to look, and there may not be entire pavilions, but there is quite a bit left. The 39 fair has, of course, the New York City pavilion. It has the boathouse. It has the whole layout, the whole infrastructure of the fair that was designed for that, uh, of the park rather, that was designed for that fair, and the two lakes that were created, man-made lakes, and there's the entrance. There are some benches there, flagpoles, so there's quite a bit there, and off-site there's mostly uh, sculptures. There are sculptures in upstate New York, Bear Mountain. There's sculptures in Virginia. There is a building in Virginia also, um, because the 39 fair, 40 fair was World War II started happening at that time, and a lot of the people, the employees who worked at the fair, couldn't go back. Some of the buildings, which were uh, set to go back after the fair, back to Europe, could not go back. There was one building, a beautiful modernism type building in for the Virginia building, and that uh, couldn't go back. So they had a this was the Belgian pavilion or Belgian
Okay.
building. And so in Belgium, they got together and decided to keep the building in the United States, and they uh, got a bunch of schools to enter a contest to see who was going to get this building, and it's at the University of Virginia. It's still there. I have not photographed it yet, but I intend to go there in the springtime and look at that.
Oh, interesting. Now, both fairs were held at the Flushing Meadows Corona Park.
Yes, yeah, that's a park in Flushing. Uh-huh.
Was there any parts of the 39 World's Fair that were incorporated into the 64 World's Fair?
The infrastructure of the park, aside from that, the New York City building that represented New York City during the 39 fair became the New York City Pavilion in the 64 fair. Apart
Uh,
from that, not much else.
you
The
know,
boathouse, there's a boathouse there that was never a pavilion. It was part of the Florida Pavilion in the 64 fair. But it was used mostly to for storage, that kind of thing.
well, both fairs had an interesting, my pa always said, better to fill your head with useless knowledge than no knowledge at all. And both fairs had an interesting automotive component. The
Oh
GM
yeah.
Futurama exhibit in 39, and then, of course, the Ford Mustang introduced at the
Oh,
Ford Pavilion in the
yeah.
64 World's Fair.
Hmm. Right, that's still being produced. Uh-huh. And there were a number of beautiful buildings representing the car manufacturers, and it was. the Futurama building. General Motors had the Futurama exhibit, which was very popular in the first fair in 1939, and they recreated it, changing a few things for the 64 fair. So that was, I remember standing on those lines, they were endless. But
Uh,
what a wonderful show. And Ford was probably one of my favorites. Just a beautiful exhibit, very modernistic, futuristic. You felt like you were in that Jetsons type of googie um, setting. It's just so much fun.
at the risk of sounding bigger than I am and being a name dropper, I had talked to Jay Leno a while back about the
Uh-huh.
1964 World's Fair and the introduction of the Ford Mustang and the Ford Pavilion had a major influence on the direction that he went and his passion
Mm-hmm.
for automotive history
Mm-hmm.
and technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are a number of cars. I met a fella a couple of weeks ago who has one of the cars that was at that exhibit. His parents knew somebody who knew somebody, and his parents ended up with the car, and now he has it. It's a beautiful car, a Ford car, and it's an immaculate condition. And though, like so many other things, the cars were just gorgeous, and their styles lasted. Maybe for you and me, maybe not for a lot of people, but I know we enjoy those styles. Just beautiful, really
It's really
prideful.
amazing. I think we were better. This is something we need to revisit. I think the World's Fairs, especially the 39 and 64, showcasing getting people excited about the future and technology
Hmm.
and bringing
Hmm.
people together from all over the world. Uh, you know, I don't know why we're not doing things like this on this scale anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. There's a very interesting article in the New York Times today about the architecture modernism style called Googie, and how it's dying, and how that style, of course, a lot of that was represented at the 64 fair. That represented the future and hope and optimism. And everybody that you talk to, that I meet, who whether they attended the fair or whether they just loved the fair and they were too young to attend, the hope and the joy that they remember about that fair, it never goes away. I feel it myself. And this architectural style of Googie, how it's dying, and it represented the future,
Hmm.
just like what we're talking about. And people are saying, that we need to not let this type of style die, but we need to resurrect it and bring it back. And I mean, there were so many wonderful things back then. I hate to be someone who's sounding old and looking back, because there's some great things today too. You fall into that trap, but listen, the glass boxes that they build these days, it just doesn't rate. It's
No,
not the same.
there's nothing wrong with being the proverbial old timer looking back, doing the when I was a kid. That's I think that's just endemic. But a lot of these things are cyclical. The Art Deco of the 1930s has had a real resurgence in popularity
Hmm.
with the younger generation, and I think we'll see a resurgence in these architectural styles in the near future. One of the
I
things
hope you're right.
me too. I'm not a fan of generic, and that's what I feel like a lot of architecture,
Hmm.
automotive design. It's become kind of a generic and sterile,
Hmm.
and it's just
Yeah.
it kind of leaves me cold.
Yeah.
Um, One reason I have such a fascination with World Fair is I've collected a lot of stuff from the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis.
Oh,
And I think it was the 1893 Chicago Exposition.
right, right.
I think
The
my
one with the
grandmother,
Ferris wheel.
yeah, My
Uh-huh.
grandmother left me a big, gosh, it's probably a foot wide and 10 inches high, a leather bound souvenir photograph album from
Oh,
the
wow.
1893 fair. So I've had a long fascination with these
Oh,
events.
exciting.
Hey, the 64 event, I understand the Vatican had a pavilion there and
Yes.
they brought over Michelangelo's Pieta.
Yes, yes, they brought that over for both seasons. It stayed here. Robert Moses, when he did the '64 fair, it was on the heels of the Seattle fair in '62. For there's the governing body who oversees World's Fairs. They were not too keen on that. It's the Bureau of International Exhibitions, the BIE, and so they would not sanction the '64 fair. And what that meant was we were boycotted by most of the larger countries. So that left a lot of room for the smaller countries like the Vatican and Belgium and a lot of the countries that soon became stars of that fair. And the Vatican, I don't know what Robert Moses did, but he had a lot of gifts and a lot of uh, a way of uh, working deals with people, and he was able to get the Pietà to stay at the fair at the Vatican Pavilion for two full seasons, and it was amazing. I remember that nobody could ever forget that. It was just very, very beautiful, amazing.
Ah, you see, that's another reason we need to do these kind of events is because how many people have, how many people can travel to the Vatican to see these kind of things
Right.
and bringing it there. I was surprised. I started doing a little bit of research on the fest. I was surprised by the attendance numbers of these
hmm
events.
hmm
That was, especially the 39 fair when you consider that transatlantic travel was still kind of
hmm
embryonic, and it's
Right.
astounding how much the size of the attendance.
Right. It is amazing. I mean, that's you can look at that from two sides, the attendance, because it is the attendance that ended up causing the organizers of the fair to call it a failure. In fact, both fairs, um, they only had, I believe it was 44 million for the 39-40 for those two seasons, a total of 44 million, and what they wanted was 50 million, so they were 6 million shy.
Hmm.
The paid attendance at the 65 fair was 52 million, and what they expected, what they wanted was 70 million. So that was we're what 18 million below. But we can't ignore the fact that 96 million people attended these fairs. I mean, that's
Yeah,
not too shabby, and that's people from all over the world.
yeah,
So,
ex-
that's amazing, and to me, that can't. How can that be a failure?
yeah,
And when you talk to these people, this is the highlight of their lives.
yeah.
When I was a kid, I knew there was something about the fairs. I mean, we went to Freedom Land and Palisades Park and all these things, but there was something about the fair you knew that was going to stay with you for life. And
Right.
how can that be a failure?
Yeah, it was life changing, and like I mentioned again, Jay Leno, the people who, how many people visited these fairs and they were inspired to become architects or
Mm-hmm.
engineers,
Right.
or I mean, the lives that these fairs touched and changed.
Yeah.
The 39 and 40 fair is intriguing, the numbers, because when you consider the international travel against the
Mm-hmm.
backdrop of what was taking place at that time,
Right.
the invasion of Poland in '39 that precipitated World War II, and
Mm-hmm.
and we're putting on this grand event here. That's that's pretty impressive. Those numbers.
Yeah. It's incredible. But
Well,
yeah.
What was your favorite? Do you have a favorite memory of the World's Fair? An exhibit that really just, I mean, just really you've never been able to really forget?
I mean, I don't think I have one. I because I have so many. It was I'd been in so many to all the almost all of the exhibits, and I mean, I always remember meeting John Glenn. That was a highlight for me. I'd always,
Oh, yes.
I was a kid in school in fourth grade, and of course, we followed the the launches going into outer space. Our classes actually, whenever there was a launch, we wouldn't have a class. We would watch the TV, and this was a very big thing back then. This is in the '60s, of course.
Yeah.
And so meeting John Glenn was very exciting. I remember, you know, shaking his hand like I'm seeing him right now. So that was very exciting. But
God.
I've always been a car person. I loved Ford, as I said. Excuse me. I love GM, and I loved Coca Cola. I love that was maybe that was my favorite. I loved the Seven Up Pavilion where you got these wonderful little sandwiches, and I mean, there's just so much to love. The fireworks were a lot of fun. Um, GE, Kodak, of course, I was always into photography. So, I mean, I loved all of it. I was just
Ah.
enchanted by it all.
I can, it's interesting to hear you talk about this because uh, it's almost like you become your childlike
Yes,
enthusiasm for this. It has lasted all these years. That's
yeah.
that's that's impressive. That
It's
that really speaks volumes about the impact.
it's the book came about in a funny way. I had no intention of writing this book. I'm working on three other books, and no thought of doing a book like this. And I just, I was doing a little article for somebody about the fairs, and I could not stop researching, Jim. I just, it's like I hadn't had any desire to go into the park. I was happy traveling away from New York. But when I started in on this, I just couldn't stop. And I read every book, I bought every book, I read every article. I couldn't stop, and I was just so immersed in all of this. It was just amazing. I don't know where this love came from or passion, because I had not really thought about the fair in 50 years, and it's incredible.
Started peeling back layers.
Yeah.
Was this your first book? I,
It
you
is
said it,
my first published book. Yeah, I'm working on three others that are, taking a long time, but I still have my day job, so but
uh,
they are. This is the
we're
first.
we're never too old to start off on new adventures.
No, this was a great adventure. It was the best. A dream that I'd had since a kid. Everybody said you got to write, you got to write, you got to write, and I always hated writing. I was always one of those authors. I loved having finished writing, but
Yes.
I really got into this. It wasn't like the other three books I'm writing. This one has a lot of photographs, so it takes up a lot of room for that. But certainly a lot of research and whatnot. But there will be many more.
Ah,
All
good.
I
I
can
am
say.
glad. I'm
I'm
glad
hooked.
to hear that. I am very glad to
And
hear
I'm
that.
impressed. I have to tell you, I'm impressed. 22 books. You're one of those people I look up to. I can't even fathom it.
It, well, it's funny, like say how these things. I joke about this that I'm trying to become a writer when I grow up, become an author. I didn't start till late in life, and my dearest friend, my wife, I've always been blue collar, and she
Mhm.
encouraged me because I love books, always have.
Mhm.
And I've been told I had a gift for telling people where to go. And I could talk about some of these things, especially automotive history. I could talk for hours, even if I was the only one in the
Mhm.
room, and enjoy myself.
Oh
So
wow.
she encouraged me to start doing this, and one thing led to another. Uh, the park in Flushing Meadows, Corona Park, is Is this kind of like Central Park? I mean, kind of a good green space in the city now?
Yeah, that's ideally what Robert Moses wanted to create. Uh, a park in Queens to serve the residents and visitors to our city. And his goal was that park. And so the ironic thing is that we're all looking for relics and remnants of the fair, and why didn't they keep these gorgeous buildings and that kind of thing? And Moses couldn't demolish these things fast enough because the goal was the park. And the only reason the World's Fairs were created was to raise funds to develop that park, which I
Hmm.
thought I had not known that before. And I thought that was, kind of mind boggling. It's a great park, but it's not the fair. But
No.
it's a great park. We've got baseball. We used to have football. We've got a zoo. We've got everything. They have different food festivals. They have. You couldn't name me a sport that they don't have. Soccer fields everywhere. We're getting a brand new whole soccer complex there, and they have rowing and uh, the sports uh, where they do well. Um, they have golf. I mean, you just name it. Everything in that park. It's an amazing park, but
You
it's
know,
not the fair.
no. Have you ever thought about doing a book about documenting remnants from the other World's Fairs? St. Louis, Seattle?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's on. You're reading my to do list,
Ah,
and
good, good.
so there were. So I used to live in San Diego, and as I said, I wasn't really into World's Fairs, but I did know that in Balboa Park, a lot of those gorgeous buildings were from the two World's Fairs that were there. They kept them, and they were built to be temporary, but they kept them because people just said, "Hey, you can't demolish these; they're gorgeous." And
Hmm.
then in in Seattle, they of course do all sorts of things annually to bring people to the city. So it's a great tourist.
Right.
Um, it's on everybody's list, certainly mine. So I'd like to do a book on each of those, and I certainly want to go to Dallas. Dallas has the most intact World's Fair that exists, and it's all of these gorgeous Art Deco buildings that they have renovated and kept up. And I've never been there, and I certainly would like to do a book on that. I mean, I think it's fascinating, and I'm very inspired by these cities that they did this, and sort of. I hate to say it in over the waves like this, but very disappointed in my city in not thinking more of tourism and bringing people to a city like New York, which is on everybody's list to visit, and you're missing out on tourist dollars by not taking care of what is in that park and not thinking about bringing tourists here for that.
Well, the St. Louis World's Fair, of course, was held there in Forest Park, which kind of another one of those little fill your head with useless knowledge things. But the original alignment of Route 66 went around the park, and a lot of the, I shouldn't say a lot, but a number of buildings from the World's Fair have still exist there. The Missouri
Oh,
History
they do?
Museum. Yeah.
Ah, I did not. I don't think I realized that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
the Missouri History Museum was one of the buildings from the exhibition. The St. Louis Art Gallery was one of the buildings, and I believe the zoo and a couple others there in Forest
Huh.
Park. Uh, Here's a little connection
I
for you.
definitely have to look that up. Interesting.
When you get started on this project with this book on these other World's Fairs, I will send you ahead of time a link. Here's an interesting little Route 66 connection for you.
Mhm.
The World's Fair in Seattle, uh, the Dunton family attended that event, and there was a local company there that made root beer in the area, and they had an exhibition at the World's Fair. And that inspired Roy Dunton. He remembered that root beer from his childhood. He was a product of the Great Depression.
Mhm.
And his son and him in 1992, they bought a roadside restaurant cafe here in Kingman, the Chemo Cafe, and they converted it into Mr. D's Route 66 Diner.
Ah.
And they tracked down the defunct root beer company and got the recipe and started making root beer that they had found at the World's Fair in Seattle. And that
Mm.
became a signature uh, for Mr. D's Route 66 Diner here in Kingman, Arizona.
Huh. Fascinating.
So, there
Wow.
again, these World Fairs have a far reaching impact.
Yeah, that's amazing. I did not know that, and I did not know about St. Louis that anything was left over because I thought I did my research. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
You know, these are two of the greatest icons of the 20th century. I mean, I know of you long before you know of me through Route 66, of course, as a road traveler. One of my favorite things, you know, and
what, what year was the World's Fair in Dallas?
in Dallas, the year I have to look that up. One second, I don't remember. Um,
And let's see, if I remember right, wasn't there a World's Fair in Tennessee?
1936 and 1937.
Ah, okay. Oh gosh, that would be amazing that that survived.
Yeah, and so interesting that that was 2 years before the 39 fair, and so I wonder that the 39 fair was sanctioned because the IBE said they couldn't sanction the 64 fair because Seattle was 2 years before it. Who knows?
Hmm. Well, that is you see what happens when you start pulling on these strings.
Yeah.
One thing leads to another. I did not know about a lot of the stuff in St. Louis. I was there recently and
Mm. One of my
just
favorite towns.
learned about some of this. But God, that's
That's
pretty interesting.
that's book number 4 now.
God, yeah, this is really intriguing. May I ask? I know you do a lot of photography. Are you involved with other writing projects or?
Just you know, these were things of my youth that you know I went to art school as a kid, and you know I'm a product of my generation. I guess I came out of the '60s, and you know I always had a lot of talent for writing and photography. And everybody said, you know, in my school, you should go and do that professionally. And I guess coming out of a lower middle class family, I was looking to earn money too, and I needed to survive. And so I got jobs instead and didn't follow it. So those yearnings were always in me, and so I followed it up at a later age now. But the other books that I'm doing have nothing whatsoever to do with creativity or
Uh,
photography, and but it's certainly on the menu now.
well, better late than never. And I, for
Yeah,
one, am very glad that you have set out to tell this story and preserve this and, well, inspire a road trip or two. Um,
yeah, yeah. You
this
got
is
to do
all
a road trip.
sharing America's story and
Hmm.
inspiring road trips. And you've accomplished both with this
Hmm.
project.
Thank you.
Yeah, the 39 fair had for those who aren't familiar, the I think you can find some of the videos of this on YouTube, but the General Motors
Hmm. Yeah,
Futurama had an interesting vision of the future highway system.
yeah,
And it's kind of intriguing to watch that video, and you can see some of the seeds that were planted for creation of the interstate highway system.
yeah. I mean, that was. in 39, the cars and the highways and the automation of things were what was that part of looking at the future. That was what was going to change our lives. We were getting everywhere we wanted to go, wherever we wanted to go, faster.
Well, and then, like you said, the '64 World's Fair, they just took that to the next level, and the focus was a
Mm-hmm.
lot on the space age, because
Exactly.
that was going to be the exciting new future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. The future that never came.
Well, a lot of it shows up in a different format, maybe a
Right.
little bit later than than we expected, I suppose. I know your book, Looking Back at the Future, is available on Amazon.
Yes.
Do you have another source?
Lots
Uh,
of them. Anybody can go into. A lot of people like to buy local, which is great. I'm a
yes,
big
please.
bookstore person. All you have to do is go into your local bookstore and ask for it. It's
Okay.
available for order, and they shouldn't charge you more. It should be the same price. You can get it on Barnes and Nobles. You can get it anywhere you can buy a book because I am, and it's in hardcover. It's in the soft cover, and uh, and it's in an Amazon ebook, and I'm uh, about to. I haven't finished publishing yet. There's all these other EPUB ebooks and things like that, which I'm, all new to me, but that's coming, and large print is coming. My soft cover has large print listed. That is in error, and so we're waiting for folks to take care of that. But there's no large print available yet, but that will also be coming.
Very good. Uh, what happens if they want an autographed copy? Is that
Oh,
possible?
yeah, I am in the middle of uh, resurrecting my website, and I will have autographed copies available on there, and you can always buy the book through me. Um, and either directly through me just personally. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all of these things.
Okay. I will, if anybody's listening, I will have this up on the Jim Hinckley's America website this next week. I'll put up links and information on the book and where you can get copies of this. Uh, and I
We
hope,
will have we will have shopping bags also available.
oh, interesting.
Little
We've
shopping.
got several great travelers with us today. I notice in the audience, Denny Gibson
All
is the
right.
one. He's
Hi,
kind of an
Denny.
author. He, I don't know if Denny's ever explored the World's Fair sites, but Denny has written a few books on some interesting road trip adventures over the years. And I noticed we've got some folks here from the R.E. Olds Museum in Lansing, Michigan, and East Lansing. Oh, we got quite a
All
few good
right.
folks
Nice.
with us today. Hey,
Fascinating.
I have this has been really intriguing. I urban exploration is like, say, it's I'm sure a psychiatrist would love to try to delve into this, but I just am not a fan of big cities. And yet,
Okay.
if I get sucked into a big city like what you've done here to entice me, I can get joyfully lost in exploration. Uh, yeah, because I just am fascinated to know the story behind things.
Mhm.
And if I was at this park and saw some of these things that you talk about, I'd want to know why they're here.
Mhm.
So I hope you've really sparked a road trip or
I
two.
I can commiserate with you because I really hate large cities, and which is why I always took my road trips away from here. And I love traveling the Midwest and the sleepy towns out in Nevada and California that look like, it's 1955 and it's not a day past. Love all that, but um, they keep their vintage, and I think that makes them fascinating. They're a mix of everything, and the big cities just tear everything down immediately. It wipes everything clean, and so you can't connect anymore. So it's easier to
Yeah,
connect with the smaller towns.
well, it is. The property value is a lot of that.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
the property value makes things. Uh, Unfortunately, the dollar, dictates what
yeah,
survives and what doesn't.
yeah.
Um, there are certain areas, that really are fascinating. The theater district downtown Los Angeles, Seventh and Broadway,
Mhm.
is kind of starting a resurgence uh, down there, and that's of course the original western terminus of Route 66. But I don't
Mhm.
know if you're familiar with this, but in the teens and the 20s, uh, in fact, today there are more historic theaters in that district than any place else in the United States.
Wow.
From theaters from the vaudeville era all the way up in the 20s and 30s,
Huh.
and they're
Fascinating.
beautiful. Most of them, of course, became porno palaces and whatnot, and
Mhm.
they're experiencing a real resurgence. And I think it's the Los Angeles theater you would really appreciate. The
Mhm.
interior was modeled after the Palace of Versailles,
Ah.
and they called it the $1 million theater because the marquee and facade cost $1 million in the 1920s.
Wow.
It was pretty extraordinary. It's
But
all
they have
very
some
good.
extraordinary architecture in Los Angeles. One of my
Yes.
favorite towns. Just beautiful, beautiful architecture. That a lot of it is also very much in danger. We've
Yeah.
lost a lot of it.
Gloria, God bless. Thank you. I tell you what, I have greatly appreciated this conversation this morning, and I appreciate you taking your time from their Sunday morning. I hope we didn't cause you too much undue stress and with this. This
Not at all. My first podcast. It's a breeze. I thank you, Jim. I really,
I
really treasure you, and thank you for inviting me. It was great.
Oh, you bet.
Wonderful.
It's all about, like say, it's sharing America's story. It's inspiring road trips. It's never meant to be a gym show, gym focus.
Hmm.
It's the people like yourself that add the seasoning to this. And
Mm.
the technology thing, especially for anybody over 50 years of age, it's astounding how fast, how quick things are changing.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I tell you, I'm really sad by how many people um, allow fear to keep them from embracing it, trying it,
Hmm.
experimenting, everything from publishing to AI. You know,
Right.
they're
Yeah.
really really bothered by that. Denny has sent a note here. He says, "Hi Gloria, I have the book on order through my local
All
store."
right. Thank you, Denny. Denny's my friend. The Washington Chili restaurant.
I see. The yeah, this is the local bookstore. I'll leave you with this, but gosh, that's an endangered species.
Yeah.
I miss that a lot. We do not have a bookstore currently in Kingman,
Really. Oh, that's sad.
and
We
most
don't
towns
either.
don't.
I thought a small town like yours would. You know.
No, a lot of the
Huh,
small towns I know of don't have
that's a
bookstores.
shame.
But if you're listening and you want a couple recommendations for some great local bookstores, Flagstaff and Tucson have a store called Bookman's, and it's a mall of vintage books, magazines,
Oh wow.
got all the way back. And one of my favorites, I usually end up there every year, is Auto Books Aero Books in Burbank, California, on Magnolia Boulevard. The
Hmm.
store has been in business since 1953. They
Wow.
moved to their current location about 2 blocks up the street in 2010. And they are filled with every kind of automotive book, repair manual, coffee table books, magazines, you name it. Well,
Oh
I picked up a
wonderful.
book last year where I was doing a book signing there, and it's it's got kind of a caricature of an anarchist on the cover, and it's Dr. Dyke's Diseases of the Gasoline Engine and How to Cure Them. It's a
I
1903 automobile repair manual.
love it.
Gloria, thank you so very much for taking time this morning. I've enjoyed
Thank
this,
you.
and I will send you a link when this is published. And I will also send you a link. I'll do a blog post this next week and see if we can generate some interest.
All right. Well, I thank you so much, Jim. Again, it was a pleasure. And I wish you a
Ah,
happy holiday. And all the listeners, I wish everybody a happy holidays. Be safe.
thank you, Miss Gloria. You take care of
Okay.
yourself.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Bye bye
Bye
now.
bye. Well, before we get too carried away, I better don't go away. I've got some. I want to share. I'll share some updates on upcoming programs, a couple of projects I'm working on. But first, well, I need to give a shout out to some of our sponsors. So can you just bear with me for about 2.5 minutes, and we'll shout out to our sponsors.
Well, happy holidays, everybody. It's that special time of year again.
It is.
And we are so glad that you are here with us for Coffee with Jim.
Absolutely.
It just wouldn't be the same without all of you listeners out there.
I really wouldn't.
Hitting the road with us and exploring America.
Yeah. And, we have to thank our sponsors because, without them,
That's right.
we wouldn't be here either.
Absolutely. Coffee with Jim is made possible by those wonderful sponsors.
Yes, it is.
So we're going to give them a shout out right now.
Okay. First up, we have Enchanted Trails, Trading Post, and RV Park.
Ooh, I love that place.
It's in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yeah, it's like stepping back in time.
It really is. It's a classic 1940s trading post.
And those Sandia Mountains.
The Sandia Mountains are just beautiful there. Such a beautiful backdrop.
An amazing backdrop.
And you can even check out a collection of vintage travel trailers.
It's a true Route 66 experience.
It really is.
If you're looking for that, that's the place to go.
Yes, definitely.
Now, how about the Wagon Wheel Motel?
Oh, the Wagon Wheel Motel. That's in Cuba, Missouri.
It's a Route 66 legend.
It is. It's the oldest continuously operating motel on Route 66.
Wow. Now, you can feel that history there, can't you?
You can. You really can. And Connie and Charlie, the owners, they're just wonderful people.
They're so welcoming.
They really are.
They really are. It's like family.
It is.
Now, if you want a taste of the 1960s, you've got to check out the Roadrunner Lodge Motel.
Oh, yeah. The Roadrunner Lodge in Tucumcari, New Mexico. It's a time capsule.
It's a time capsule of cool.
It really is. And it's got all the modern comforts, too.
That's what I like to hear.
Don't forget to ask about the Tiki Room. It's pretty neat.
Oh, that Tiki Room. It's a story for another time.
It is. It is.
Of course, you can't take a road trip without planning it, and that's where Road Trip USA comes in.
Road Trip USA, they are fantastic. They can help you plan the perfect adventure.
Whether you're dreaming of cruising Route 66,
Or exploring California in a convertible.
or even hopping on a motorbike for a group tour, they can make it happen.
They can. They even do those amazing trips through the Canadian Rockies on the Rocky Mountaineer train.
Oh, that's a bucket list item for me.
It is for me, too.
And we can't forget our amazing Patreon supporters.
No, absolutely not. They help make this all possible.
They are the reason that we can keep bringing you these stories.
They are, they help us explore the hidden gems of America.
They really do, and we are so grateful for their support.
Absolutely.
And last, but certainly not least, we have the Cactus Inn Motel in McLean, Texas.
Oh, the Cactus Inn. It's a cozy little spot.
It's like a dream come true.
It is. It's a 1950s dream, just overflowing with Texas hospitality.
I can't wait to go back.
Me too.
Well, from all of us here at Jim Hinckley's America, we want to wish you happy holidays.
And a very happy new year.
And we hope you'll join us next Sunday morning for another shared adventure on Coffee with Jim.
Until then, happy trails.
Safe travels, everybody.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye.
Hey, we got some great things coming up in the next couple of weeks. Like I say, we'll have a blog post up on the Jim Hinckley's America website promoting and a little more details about Gloria's great book about the New York World's Fair. Looking back at the future, photographing vintage leftovers. We'll have information up on that by the end of the week. Today's program will be published by this evening. It'll be available on Spotify and other podcast platforms. And then, of course, we have an embedded player on the Jim Hinckley's America website, the Kingman Tours website, and the B.News. If you would like, I have the code. If you'd like to have the embedded player for your website, well, we can do that too. And, we got coming down the pike. We are still on to have Kaisa Barthuli of the National Park Service Route 66 Corridor Preservation Program Director. She'll be with us in January, probably towards the end of the month. We're trying to pin down the date. Next week, I've got a real interesting guest for you. She's joined us once quite some time ago when she was the tourism director in Atlanta, Illinois. Whitney Ortiz will be with us next week. Very fascinating young lady, just really amazing. She is an adventurer worthy of Indiana Jones. She has visited something like 20 plus countries. She has worked archaeology digs in Israel, and she's a passionate fan of road trips here in the States, Route 66. Like I say, she was the tourism director in Atlanta, Illinois for a while, and now she's embarking on some new adventures. We'll be talking to her next week. And then the week after that, the first program of the new year, we'll be talking with Elizabeth Olwig. She is with the Route 66 Association of Missouri. And boy, there are some exciting things happening in the Show Me State along Route 66. And I look forward to talking to her. She's a very dynamic and has an infectious enthusiasm for the Route 66 community. I think you're going to be pretty intrigued by that as well. What I've got coming up, I've got quite a few little projects in the works. The Route 66 Centennial Anthology that I had the privilege of working on with Dries Bessels, Gregory Hassman, Reese Martin, and Joe Sonderman, and Cheryl Eicher Jett. That book will be available, I understand now, by fall 2025. It should be published, ready to go. And I'll keep you posted on updates on that as well. Should have some updates coming on real soon on the upcoming AAA Route 66 Road Fest in Tulsa. I've got a note out to Wade Bray, and we'll see if he can get us some updates on that. I have a note here asking about the Route 66 Info Fair in Needles, California. That's usually in February. I have not had an update on that yet, but I have reached out to, I'll be reaching out to Janet Jernigan, the mayor in Needles, and I should be able to provide you some updates on that as well. I had a great meeting yesterday Friday morning, with Lisa at the Americana Motor Hotel in Flagstaff. And I will be sharing some updates on what they are doing real soon. For those who aren't familiar, the Americana Motor Hotel in Flagstaff is a near perfect blending of repurposing something old. It's always been a motel since the 1960s, but as with many of these old motel complexes, they fell on hard times. And this one was a community eyesore before some investors transformed it. They kept the original architectural styling of the property, but they brought it up to date and really gave it a new zest, appealing to a new generation of travelers. It's colorful, to say the very least, and they've got taco truck on site, pickleball courts, bicycles. The city of Flagstaff is very bicycle friendly, and they have bicycles there in the lobby for exploring Flagstaff. Flagstaff is a dark sky city, and you can also get telescopes there in the office, and they've got a place out back where you can get a good view of the night sky with the San Francisco peaks in the background. That's kind of all exciting stuff. I'm hoping to have some more updates. They're expanding the urban trail system here in Kingman, which I am just excited about. I think that's got everything caught up to date. And next week, same time, 7 o'clock Sunday morning. The reason I put this out there, Arizona time instead of Mountain Standard Time, is Arizona is one of those quirky states. We don't do daylight savings time. So it gets a little confusing sometimes. So I figure if I put Arizona time, people will know that we're on our corner of the twilight zone. And, know when to find us. But like I say, the programs are archived on Spotify and most major podcast platforms. Until we meet again, my friend, unless you have some questions, please ask away. But otherwise, well, we'll bid everybody adios and via con Dios, and well, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Gloria, thank you again for taking time this morning, and thank you very much for preserving this history for future generations with your book. It's greatly appreciated. My friends, until next week, I will send you off with some music from Joe and roadcrew66.com if you need a theme song for your road trip.
You, friend, on an old road.
Gloria, thank you. Have a great holiday.
Memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.